Hey everyone, Joe Fox here from Growave. I'm very excited for today's episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive. I've known Marisa for quite some time. Marisa was one of our first agency partners when I started at Growave quite some time ago. So I'm very excited to introduce Marisa from Syhlman Studios. We have a lot of shared merchants together, and I think Marisa is going to be able to provide some really cool insights to merchants and agencies around looking at things from a really holistic perspective and not just looking at individual elements, particularly when it comes to loyalty and life cycle and website, but how do all of those pieces kind of fit together? So without further ado, Marisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. I've loved getting to know you and working with Growave and, like you said, implementing more of like the holistic strategy for just digital growth, email, SMS, website, loyalty. There's so much noise and so much competition that like if you don't have a holistic strategy, how are you going to tell that story at the right time with, the right point for that customer? And that's something.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead. That's something that
Sorry,
I've like,
no, I was, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was going to say, I think that's something you do incredibly well. Like when I
thank
look
you.
at some of these brands that we share, Natalie Martin's a really good example of that. I love the fact that you have so much of a pulse on the DNA of that brand and the look and feel and the style and the design and it's just so cohesive and it looks absolutely incredible. And I think that's a perfect example, in my opinion, of working with a partner who really understands all of the elements that we mentioned, how loyalty fits into that piece, and then I think how loyalty really helps to drive that brand. So I want to definitely dive into that a little bit more, but I think before we get into that holistic picture, Marissa, congratulations first too on the baby. I think that's a big one, and thank you for joining because I know it's early in Hawaii. But
Yes, it's all good.
I just firstly kind of want to dive a little bit into your background.
Yeah,
How did you get to where you are, and how did you develop the knowledge and skill set that you have?
it's kind of crazy. It was before Klaviyo was like a big thing. I was using MailChimp for
Yep.
clients. I was freelancing. I taught myself HTML because I was like, these MailChimp templates are crap. They're not good looking. I don't like how they look. So I would hand code them and then send them out for my clients. Eventually, Klaviyo came into the picture and completely like revolutionized the email marketing opportunities and design and integrate like just everything. Uh,
Yes.
so it took off. I was already working with Shopify. Klaviyo came into the picture, and then I started rolling into loyalty programs because brands need them. Why wouldn't they go to Amazon? Why wouldn't they go to a retailer? If they go direct to you, you want to say thank you and make them feel special and keep telling that story. So it all kind of started, I guess, with Shopify, rolling into Klaviyo, rolling into loyalty, and just coming up with strategies there. I went to school for traditional advertising. And when I came out, it wasn't really a huge thing anymore. It was,
Yes.
Nike doing traditional advertising, billboards, paid radio ads, TV ads, those like more digital marketing was revolutionizing the entire industry. So I pivoted towards these platforms and specialized in them. And now I've been working with all of these platforms for what, like 10, 12 years. Um, and it's just kind of snowballed into coming up with these holistic strategies to make sure that we're telling the thorough story and we're telling that at the right point in the user journey and making sure, where we can tailor messaging or we can tailor content, we're showing these people the content they want to see. It's not just churning out, stuff. It's a story that you're telling and it's authentic and it's something that these customers on their user journey want to see. Like they are engaging and you can see that from the analytics.
Absolutely. And sorry, I love that because two things there. I had a very similar experience from coming from a traditional kind of advertising background, and I sort of made this transition from my previous career and into, advertising and similar things, studied, all of the things around, I guess copywriting's still relevant, but copywriting and sort of like TV ads and like media
Totally.
buying and all of that sort of thing. And my mentor was actually my mum's cousin who is really successful in the advertising space in Australia. Still works in the digital. He works in the digital space now, and he's been very successful in his own right in the digital space. But I remember when I was doing the study, he sort of said to me, he's like, "Look, Joe, I'm telling you, this isn't going to be around as much, and it's not going to be as prevalent. The move is to make is to into the digital side of things." And I'm so glad I took that piece of advice because I'm known to not take people's advice and be stubborn sometimes. But that was a really good piece of advice that I took because, it really shaped my career. And similar to you, I think it's like being early days in that space was just so amazing and
Oh,
so important. And I find with a lot of, marketers these days who haven't, kind of lived through that transition period or gone through that sort of like kind of missed out a little bit because I think some of those key fundamentals are transferable. But I really like that approach. And I think to your point, like every piece of design, every piece of messaging, everything along the customer journey has to have a purpose. And I really like that's a big part of what you do, Marissa. And I think one of the cool things that we get to see working with partners is different approaches and different ways to tackle things. But I love that you're also so involved in the design because I think that DNA of a brand and translating that from, in Natalie Martin's case, for example, like it's feeling, it's wearing, it's how it looks and how it sits and all of those sorts of things that are important in fashion, but really translating that across to the user journey, I think is a perfect example of what you do. So, can you talk me through a little bit about, kind of your process when you're working with a new brand? Like, say, for example, we could use Natalie Martin as an example if you wanted to, or another brand that you're working on. But I'd love to understand or hear in your words, what's that process look like?
yeah, totally. So with any brand, we'll use Ollie Martin, like you said, as an example. The first thing is understanding their brand DNA and who they are. So a lot of the times they do start with email marketing or website. As we grow and our relationship continues, I'll figure out the strategy, like what's missing, what do we need? Um, in their case, they needed loyalty. Um, so we went in and they came up with kind of their tiers. Your team was awesome at helping us figure out, what should the dollar per dollar spend be? What should the rewards be? What makes the most sense for a luxury brand? Because they're not a brand where you're getting, a $20 credit every time you,
Yes.
like they do not do
Yes.
discounts. So it was very
Yeah.
methodical. Um, we had a custom landing page developed because we wanted it to feel very custom, very them. Again, back to the graphics and making sure we're telling that story and showing them everything they have to offer. Because you can buy Natalie Martin at different stores. So why are
Yes.
you going to go directly to their store? Um, we also integrated Klaviyo. So we have, when they do get enough points for a gift card, or they call it um, what is it? They call it stamps and I can't think of the word right now. But they don't use the term gift card because that's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
branded. So
It's
that's
not
something
on
that
brand. Totally. Yeah.
they also thought through is like, how do we want to position these words? Like, because they are luxury, they're a high-end brand. So we integrated email marketing. So when a gift card is ready and they have points for that, an automatic trigger from your guys' logic sends an email out saying, hey, you have this $20 credit. Would you like to use it? Let's shop now. Here's our new arrivals. And their business model is, every 3 or 4 months, new collections drop. Once it's gone, it's gone. So pushing new arrivals for them is a big strategy we use when they do have these credits. Furthermore, we have some SMS that we are working on. also pushing out through Attentive, which
Yep.
I have to say, you guys have the best integrations. You play well with other with like Klaviyo, Attentive, like I've had no issues on the integrations and like the different metrics you guys offer, the ways you can utilize these automatic like triggers based on segments or metrics is super crucial because we want to be able to catch someone on their birthday and say, hey, here's a birthday surprise for you. We want to be able to catch them and say, hey, you're only $100 away from entering the next tier. The next tier you get X, Y, and Z. So shop new arrivals. Like these are all metrics that you guys offer and just need to be embraced and set up in Klaviyo or Attentive, depending on, if SMS or email is more of your customers' forte. So I
I,
usually, sorry, that was very long-winded, but
No, 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 no. I could sit here all day and listen to good things being said about the
it's
team and the product. So I was really enjoying that personally. But I love that because I feel like it's so thoughtful. Like
yeah,
you know, I one thing that I think, sorry to go on a tangent, but one
no,
thing I think that we hear a lot from luxury brands is I don't want to cheapen the brand by doing loyalty. And this is a masterclass for those brands who are listening because you've interpreted that so well for Natalie Martin. And I love to hear that the team's been a great resource in making that happen. And I love to hear about, we do play nice in the app ecosystem, but, hearing it from you directly around how to align that with a brand to not cheapen the brand and how to get great results from that. It's amazing to hear. So it's not long-winded at all. I love to hear it, Marissa.
no, it's so much fun to use. And your guys' wish list, we're implementing that as well. And just in case people don't know, it's like browse abandonment for Klaviyo or add to cart abandonment, and you have your traditional wish list. They click their heart or star, whatever icon you choose, and they actually, if they are signed up for email, get sent a hey, we saw you love this. We wanted to send you, you can put a spin on it however you want. But I'm so excited to see that turned live because I think it's going to do even better than add to cart. And it's huge. Like that one metric right there is like going to drive a ton of sales in their slip.
Abs- Absolutely. And as a an avid shopper myself, I am a big fan of that wish list feature because for me, I find and this is once again probably plays back into what we learned from a traditional advertising and marketing perspective. I like wish list because it's reminding me versus an abandoned cart, which is kind of reminding me of something that I didn't necessarily want to purchase in the first place, if that makes sense. So psychologically, I feel that, adding to a wish list versus just getting an abandoned cart email that like I know that I convert better on those emails. But I think in general, what we see, or I know in general, what we see is that the conversion rate from wish list is just so much higher because it's a completely different psychological journey, and the buyer or the customer is in a completely different mindset when they're abandoning a cart versus when they're adding something to their wish list that they actually want. So I think you're going to be amazed by that. It's my second favorite Growave feature. My first favorite Growave feature actually isn't loyalty. It's reviews at checkout
Yeah.
on Plus. That is my number one recommendation for anyone is if you do have Plus and you do have Growave and you're not showing reviews at checkout, you're crazy because the
Yeah.
conversion rate of that last piece of like social proof is just absolutely massive.
Oh, it's
So
huge.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's huge. That's yeah. The wish list sets that like intention that you were wanting this and like do you still want it? Like you said, it's not like, oh, we'll save this. I mean, they are saving it for later, but there's a different mindset, like you said. Like it's intentional. It's saved for a reason. And yeah, you guys make it super simple to go back and send this to them in their sleep and, make
Thank you.
that conversion.
Totally, totally. No, I love that. I love that. And we've got a lot of Marissa, like the audience is made up of a lot of our peers in the industry, whether it be tech or agency folks, but also a lot of our customers are kind of watching this on a regular basis. So I'd love to get your insights, like with the current way that the market is, and there's a lot of changes happening in the space, and there's vibe coding, and there's all this stuff going on, and there's so much of a focus on AI at the moment. Thank goodness the tariff stuff feels like it's behind us,
Oh my
but
gosh.
there's always something, right? Like there's always something in this market that's going on. That's why I never run out of things to talk about on the podcast. But I,
Believe that.
I, I'd I'd love to understand from your perspective, like what are the key things that you're kind of really focusing on with merchants at the moment? Are you finding it's the same fundamentals and principles, getting those 100% right and ironed out and making sure that they're done well? Or is there certain things that you're finding that are, might have been nice to haves prior but are now essential? Like, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I always come back to is authenticity. Like, how can you be authentic to your customer, to your brand, showing them what they want to see and hear from your perspective is always going to win. If you are churning out things that are not thoughtful, like people can see that now. Like there's so much
Yes.
competition in the market. And like you said, things are evolving, they're changing constantly. You have to be that constant for your brand. And you have to continue to show these people exactly who you are. And that's where it comes into like the narrative or story, whatever you want to call it, when they are going through your brand's user, life cycle. So if they come to your site, they've never heard of you, they like what they see in an ad, they come to you, you want to make sure your pop-up is on point, that it's only displaying, to people who have not signed up. Are you collecting email? Are you collecting SMS? Are you collecting both? Do you give two discounts, one for email, one for SMS? Like all of these little things play a huge role because you want to keep these customers. You want to show them that you're authentic. We say we're going to give you 10% off for your email and 10% off for your SMS. We're going to send you each of those and you get two, which is a
Yep.
huge deal.
Yep.
And then showing them that narrative in the welcome flow. And then in a welcome flow, maybe you have a hide show block, sign up for loyalty so that you can get points when you buy directly from us. Like you don't need to go to Amazon. We got you.
Yep.
Um, and that's another, people go back and forth with is Amazon evil or not. Um, and buying direct from the brand is a huge thing right now. Like people want that. They don't necessarily want to go to Amazon. They want to go to you. So let's make it as easy as possible for them to understand your brand, to purchase from your brand. Like you said, those reviews at checkout, um, get through that checkout process, become that loyalty member, help them accrue points, and then support them through email, SMS, and even just the landing page. A lot of the
Yep.
time I have a logged in and logged out version because the logged in version, which you guys have out of the box, it shows them their points. It shows them where they're at. Um, and then the email goes in and supports that. So when they're spending that money and you have the dollar to point ratio, you know, Klaviyo's watching that, Attentive's watching that, and it's sending out these triggers at the right time for these customers. Sorry, again, that was really long-winded,
No,
but
no, it's perfect. No, honestly, Marissa, I think it's so important because, we see a lot of brands who, um, despite kind of advice from our team or any of those sorts of things, and brands who might not necessarily be working with an expert such as yourself, they typically tend to go to the easiest available information on YouTube and those sorts of things, and they kind of put in place these what they think is kind of like standard or standardized, and it can't be, because to your point, that's a very clinical kind of user journey, and it's not. It's more an Amazon experience, because I consider Amazon's incredibly useful. If I need dishwasher pods or washing machine pods or anything like that,
Basics.
that's where I'm going, because it's clinical. I know what I like. I have a brand affinity to the brand. That's usually the cheapest source,
Yep.
besides probably Costco, and it works and it's easy, and I can get it the next day, and that's fine. I'm not really invested in that customer journey, but
Right.
if
You
I'm
know what you're
buying sneak, yeah, I know what I'm getting, and I'm happy to get it, in a plain box, and it doesn't bother me if the driver is having a bad day and hurls it across the road and I've got to go find it. It's a completely different experience. But
doing.
when it comes to, a pair of sneakers, a watch, some,
Reminds me.
glasses,
I love
yeah,
and I love the stories that come with it and the branding and like there's a very like I will buy from you because of your story.
absolutely. Yep, and that was 100% my point. And I think what I'm saying, and this is why I think this is such a masterclass for brands, is that I think a lot of brands are just putting in these programs, or putting in loyalty, or putting in SMS, or doing these things without thinking of that brand story. And unfortunately, I think a lot of merchants still focus on top of funnel consistently, and they're not nurturing that customer base and that loyal audience enough, and then they're essentially not getting that repeat purchase rate. Whereas if they focused that attention on really building a strong relationship, building a strong brand story, building advocates within their existing customer base, they're going to reap the reward a lot better. And it's probably the reason why they started the business, or the e-com store in the first place, is because they were solving a particular problem, or they had a certain audience in mind, or in some cases they're the audience that they were building for. So I think those things are really important. And I think in an age of AI, it's a really good way to stand out by actually, taking the time to be a human being, and
Exactly.
communicate the feel of a brand.
And that's like to touch on the AI question. Like AI can be very helpful, don't get me wrong, but in terms of storytelling, it's never going to be able to do it like a human. It's never going to be able to give it the finesse or like the finishing touch. Like it's not. Like
Totally.
there's a human element that plays into all of these stories and narratives for brands that I don't think AI will ever be able to touch. And like I said, AI, it has its uses for sure, but I think, like you said, if you're turning out things in AI or trying to use that as your sole, content creation, people know and people look now. Like they,
Absolutely.
they don't want that.
Absolutely.
Like they
You,
want you.
you'll laugh at this, because we're talking about billboards before. I live in I'm not living in Austin anymore. And, and this well, like moving from a major city to, somewhere that you want to live, and by
Yes.
choice, and all of those sorts of things. So I live in a much smaller kind of, I would say, country southern town in
I,
Texas now, that's kind of like, it's about an hour from any major city. And,
nice.
and I love that. Like, my wife and I love that. We got a lot of space. It's great for our dogs. And as you and I were chatting about earlier, when we have kids, it's going to be great for that. But one thing we've noticed is the billboard advertising still plays a
Nothing.
large part out here, because of the demographic and the audience.
Yep.
And every time my wife and I are seeing new billboards pop up, it's Chat GPT.
Oh,
It's not
God.
the paid Chat GPT. It's not like a refined Chat
It's like,
GPT where they've
turn this out.
challenged
Print.
it. Yeah, literally, it's the first prompt, and they've just been like, stick this on every billboard everywhere, and it's lacks soul. It lacks, like, it really stands out for a negative. So I'm really curious, because there's one business in particular that's been doing it, and I go in there often, and I'm gonna have a chat to them and see how it's converting, and maybe
Yeah.
politely suggest that they need some proper graphic design from a human with a soul. But yeah, I just had to bring that up because it was an interesting point, because you can tell. I think you can tell with copy, you
Hmm.
can tell with messaging, you certainly can tell with imagery. You can
Yep.
even more so tell with video. I know that it's all getting more and more refined, but I think, as humans, we're still looking for some level of human connection in brand, particularly when we're looking at, things that we're forming a new relationship with brand wise. So I'm
Totally.
glad there's people out there like you, Marissa, who are doing it the right way. It
Yeah.
makes me super happy to hear.
No, there's a weird like, especially in the videos because they are getting better, but there's a
Mm,
weird element that is just so like off-putting. And I can't
yes.
tell you what it is, but you're like, that's AI.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I found this with like, you know, the general kind of like quality of like TV shows and movies and all of that sort of thing for some time. Like, the more that CGI gets injected, or the more that, screenwriters aren't putting heart and soul into sort of things, the less engaged, myself, and I usually watch film and stuff with my wife, we are likely to be with it. Like, we know within 5 minutes whether we're going to watch it or not. And I think it's kind of this weird, I think there's going to be a huge pullback
I was
from
just
everything that's
gonna say,
happening now in every way, where it's like, it's the same as a lot of people who collect records and don't listen to music digitally. I think that is going to happen on such a major scale at some point in the near future, because everything is just lacking like depth,
like,
soul, character, like feel, like even digital art. Like, it's just not the exact same, and I think we're going to see that more and more in our field and in our space. I think there's going to be this huge swing, which I would say that we're in now, towards AI everything, and then I
um,
think there's going to become this huge pendulum where everything swings back, and I'm sure we'll find a happy medium. I
yeah.
hope we find a happy medium, but it's only time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's gonna come full circle. Like even with my kid, like we go back and watch the old school Disney movies because they're slower paced, they're real animation. It's like a story. It's
Yep,
not in your face all the time. And that
yep,
goes back to a brand narrative. Like you don't want to be in your face annoying. You just want to be authentic. You want to solve that problem. You want to make that person happy. Like the customer is, you want to be there for the customer. It's not about being in your face and always flashy, and I think
totally.
going full circle back to kind of the roots and like you said, finding that happy medium with AI is going to be, yeah, it's happening.
Good. I can't wait.
You
And it
do.
sounds like we both feel the same on that front. Um, awesome. Well, look, Marissa, I know we could talk forever. I really enjoy these conversations. I love having you as an advocate of Growave. I really appreciate it. And we love working with the merchants you're working with. Before we wrap things up, I always like to ask a couple of different questions. There's one specifically that I kind of want to ask, because I think the audience will get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah.
If you had to make one prediction, I know we've covered some predictions just now, but if you had to make one, kind of prediction for the rest of, 2026, specifically in, user journey, Shopify, any of that kind of ecosystem, what would your prediction be? Because I'd love to do a part two to this next year, and sort of see where we landed.
I think, like we just talked about, I think there is going to be a full circle swing of kind of maybe not entirely anti-AI, but really focusing on authentic. I know is it Gen Z? They are
Yes.
already very anti-AI. So if you are marketing to that, the narrative is more important than ever. The
Hmm.
authenticity is more important than ever. And in any case across the board, no matter who your customer is, it is important and it will show in your analytics down the road. If you are giving these customers your authentic story, content they want to see at the right point in their journey, you're going to see conversions. So I would say really, really focus on that and hone in on what is that story? What is that narrative? And where in the user journey do you, talk to them and how do you talk to them? It's a very and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. You just
Mm,
need to have kind of like a narrative, a story, and a plan. And then translating that to website, email, SMS, and making sure that story is consistent is really going to help drive your conversion and authenticity in a very congested world of brands.
I love that. No, that's such a good insight and such a good prediction, but also a very, very, very useful snippet of information that the audience can use. And look, I really look forward to doing a part two of this. I love how
Of
aligned we are on so many things. Once again, thank you so much for
course,
being
thank
an
you for
incredible partner and advocate of Growave. Really, really appreciate it. You've been incredibly helpful for providing feedback on product and all of those sorts of things. So I really, really appreciate it. And audience, please, Marisa, where's the best place for the audience to connect with you? Because I know that there's going to be people watching this that are like, this is what I need help with. I want to get away from the AI. I want to create authentic customer journeys. How do people reach you, Marisa?
they can go to sindristudios.co. It's SINDRI studios with an S.co, or you can find me on LinkedIn just under Marisa Syhlman. Um, Either of those places are great.
Awesome. And I'll make sure that's linked in the show notes. But, audience, I am sure you got a lot of value out of this episode. I think this was honestly a very short masterclass in creating authentic brand journeys and why they're so important. So, if you would like to learn more or you'd like to work directly with Marisa, please, please, please reach out to her on those links in the show notes below, or feel free to go to our partner directory and connect with Marisa directly through there as well. But Marisa, thank you so much again for your time. Really, really appreciate this.
Thank
And
you for having me.
really appreciate your support. No, you're like, honestly, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I know we're on two completely different time
I know. It's
schedules
all
and
good.
all of those sorts of things. But look, thank you again for all of the support,
Or
for all of the feedback, and we really enjoy working with you and look forward to continuing the partnership. And audience, please, connect with Marisa. The LinkedIn content's great as well. So, yeah, thank
yeah,
you.
thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Awesome. Audience, once again, please go connect with Marisa. This was a fantastic episode. I'm sure you got as much value out of it as I did. All of the links that were discussed are in the show notes below, and I shall see you on the next episode of Retain Grow Thrive. Thank you. Bye.